Give us a minute, everybody. We will start. I will start soon. Yeah. Just give us a minute. I'm going to start soon. The live soon. Um. Okay. I'm also going to go. Alright, alright. You don't see the stream? Let me also make sure the stream is going up. Okay. I'm also gonna. And then, give me a second, everybody. Alright. So we are going to start now. Alright. Alright. Hey everybody. Hope everyone's having a good evening wherever you are. Welcome to a new series I'm starting, a new podcast I'm starting. You might know me from the Real Talk interviews that I do with people. There's Real Tally, and I'm glad to be back. I've been taking a little bit of break, really just been taking it easy, but I'm glad to start this new podcast series with you all. We just have discussions, and we talk about stuff that pertains to gaming culture and stuff that pertains to Mabinogi culture in particular. And it's the first. I'm excited to start this new podcast. Okay. We are going to talk about parasocial relationships in gaming culture, but before we talk about gaming culture in particular and how parasocial relationships pertain to them, we gotta define what a parasocial relationship is. So if you look at the Google definition, or if you look at the dictionary definition, a parasocial relationship is classified as a one-sided relationship where one person extends emotional energy, interest, and time, and the other party, the persona, is completely unaware of the other person's existence. So, I guess to have an example, if you're crushing on somebody, but the person doesn't know you like them, and if you're, say you have a high school crush, right? Whether it's the popular boy or the popular girl, and you're crushing on them and you're admiring them from afar, but they don't even know who you are. That's an example of a parasocial relationship, or anyone popular, who doesn't really know who you are, but you admire them from a distance, and you don't really know them, they don't really know you, and they're completely unaware of your existence. That's an example of a parasocial relationship. Other examples of parasocial relationships can be found within Hollywood, celebrities, influencers, all those types of things, with their audiences. So again, the person is completely unaware of your existence, that you exist. They don't really know you, but you, on the other hand, know everything about them. It's one-sided, basically. So how do these relationships develop? So parasocial relationships develop when an audience gathers an interest in an influencer's persona or personality through repeated exposure to them. So if you're constantly consuming their content, you're constantly keeping track of who they are, you're just keeping up with them, whether it's social media, whether it's Twitter, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Twitch, or you're keeping up with whatever they put out there into the world. You're always keeping tabs on them, and it's obsessive. So kind of like it's obsessive to the point where it develops into a type of infatuation. Now this could happen. People could be obsessed with people, with their idols, with influencers for a number of reasons. It could be because their audience may find them relatable, or they relate to them in some type of way. Or it could be because people aspire to be like them, or they want what they have, and they crave what they have. This can be in the form of lifestyle, a large following, wealth, riches, or simply people just truly enjoy their talent and enjoy them for who they are, and enjoy them for being gifted, But, parasocial relationships have their pros and their cons. But we're gonna really talk more today about how parasocial relationships can be harmful, how parasocial relationships have made their way into gaming culture, and we're going to talk about Mabinogi in particular, and how I'm starting to see parasocial relationships develop in our culture and in Mabi culture. So I want to guide the discussion. I'm just starting off defining what a parasocial relationship is, that it's one-sided, that the person's completely unaware of your existence, and giving you examples that kind of help guide you, give you an idea of what exactly we're talking about and why this relationship can be bad. So parasocial relationships are a problem because they interfere with how people interact, especially in real life. Because if you admire someone from a distance, right, you're so busy wrapped up with that person, that influencer, that popular person, whoever you admire from a distance, right, in this one-sided relationship. You are so busy consumed up with this one person or group or whatever that you completely negate your real life relationships, and you completely forget about the world around you. And this is detrimental because honestly it can lead to social isolation, depression, and anxiety, and it can cause a lot of mental health issues. This is because you're isolating yourself from people from your real life, whether it's friends, family, or people who know you, and you're focusing on this one person. And it's almost like it is, you're becoming dependent on this person in terms of emotional need. You're becoming emotionally dependent on this person who barely knows you, but you know everything about them. And that could be a really dangerous situation, because say this celebrity, say this person decides to stop. Say you have a musician, right, an artist, say they decide to stop making music and you were emotionally dependent on them, if they stop making music, how you know, people who were in you being in this parasocial one-sided relationship emotionally collapse, because that's all you ever known when seeking emotional support, if that makes sense. So real life examples of parasocial relationships that I often find in culture, the Kardashians are a really good, in their audience, they're a really good example of parasocial relationships, because I notice, especially in the beauty industry and in the fashion world, they set a lot of trends and what's beautiful, and people, especially a lot of young impressionable girls, tend to look to them for an idea of beauty. And that could be whether it's, body types. Like, I know back in the 2010s era, like thick, getting a BBL, getting a lot of plastic surgery, having thick waists, lower abdomen, lower bodily nether regions. Being thick, being curvy was the wave, and a lot of people were doing that because they were setting a trend and they wanted to be like the Kardashians and have their bodies. And that's an unrealistic expectation, because first of all, a lot of people don't have the money that Kardashians have. They pay to get these plastic surgeries, right, whenever they want to, and a lot of people can't afford those types of surgeries. And if, for example, now they're dialing back, now that we're in the 2020s era, thin is becoming to more. Ever since everyone has a BBL, everyone's thick now, because everyone was following the thick thighs save lives trend. Now the Kardashians want to be thinner now. When you see Kim, you see her butt is literally smaller now. It's not as big as it used to be. You see the same thing with Chloe. You see the same thing with Courtney, and like they're becoming more thinner. And a lot of people, because the BBL and being thick has everyone's doing it. So now it's no longer unique. So that's where you see them. If you see recent photos of them, you see them reverting to being thinner, if that makes sense. And a lot of people are trying to follow that now because they're setting a trend. And I think this is very detrimental, because first, it can mess with your wallet, because a lot of people who got the BBL, who were thick, may not have enough financial money to revert their bodies back to the way they were, which was thinner, because they already spent money on a surgery to make themselves thicker. So basically, it's trying to keep up with the trends, and it can, they're doing plastic surgeries, and not everyone can afford all these plastic surgeries like them. So it leads to a lot of depression. It leads to a lot of anxiety of like, why can't I be like these women, especially for a lot of young teenage girls. And I think that's very toxic and very negative. Another example of parasocial relationships in real life are Nicki Minaj and her Barbs. Like, her bars, Nicki Minaj and the Barb fan base is incredibly toxic. Like, they do anything for Nicki. I've heard about news about Barbs breaking into homes, attacking people in real life if someone says anything bad about Nicki, and it's really disturbing. They're doing anything for someone who barely knows them, someone they don't really know, like psychotic, like it's kind of psychotic what they'll do. And it's I think this is very problematic, because if people can influence you to the point where you think about murdering somebody because they disrespected your favorite music artist, That's a problem. So with Beyonce and the Beehive, like a lot of people um don't realize the detriments and how what parasocial relationships are doing to society. And I think um we need to have more conversations about topics like this, because it's important to keep people grounded and keep ourselves grounded, like celebrities, influencers, they're people just like us, you know. Okay, so we're finally going to talk about parasocial relationships in gaming culture. So how we're going to talk about gaming culture, how parasocial relationships are caused in them in general, and we're going to talk about Mabinogi in particular. Okay. All right. So parasocial relationship in games. So parasocial relationship in games tend to be caused by gaming culture, like the game's culture, the game, basically the community and what they value. Okay. So the community and what the game's community and what they hold important dictate certain kinds of parasocial relationships and how they are. Okay. Parasocial relationships tend to be with streamers, YouTubers, but you don't necessarily have to have an online, internet presence necessarily. It could just be based on what people have heard about a certain player, or putting a certain player on a product based on what they've done in the game. So certain players, based on what people have said about them, make them popular, make them known based on what people are saying about them around the community. And you especially see this in small gaming communities, and I think parasocial relationships and Mabi, especially because we are so small, or Mabi is small compared in terms of population compared to other MMOs, they're kind of amplified because a lot of people are friends of mutual friends, and based on what they hear, you admire certain people from a distance based on what you hear about them without really knowing them, and it's kind of intensified because I consider Mabi kind of like a high school, because we're literally so small, and people are friends of mutual friends, and what goes around, people talk in these Mabi streets, in these errand streets, and people have developed certain reputations based on what people hear, and so parasocial relationships tend to be I consider parasocial relationships being amplified in a Mabi community. But I want to talk, before we talk a little bit more about Mabi, I want to talk a little bit more about parasocial relationships in gaming culture, and kind of expand on that before I talk about too much about Mabi in particular. Okay? So you tend to see parasocial relationships with streamers and YouTubers, and the types of games you see parasocial relationships on are competitive games. So you see a lot of parasocial relationships in League. You see a lot of parasocial relationships in games that tend to be grindy, like a lot of Korean MMOs like Black Desert, or you see a lot of parasocial relationships in games that are hot right now, like Final Fantasy 14, all those things, all those types of games, those grindy types of games that are kind of grindy, that you trying to get the best item, the best gear, whatever, where players feel like they have to work for what they have to advance, like really grind, and who does the best at it tends to be admired the most. In terms of streaming, from those types of communities, like the League community, the Final Fantasy community, Korean MMOs, right? People who stream those types of games or make YouTube content surrounding those types of games, I've been doing a little bit of research, and I basically came across that streamers have reported to the press of getting whispers from their viewers, where their viewers confess to them their literally deepest, darkest secrets. And I just find that so interesting, because you don't really, this is an online relationship. It's online, you don't really know this person, but you're confiding in this streamer, you know, and you're just a viewer, they don't really know you like that, and you're telling them the deepest, darkest secrets. I find that really interesting, because people who watch Twitch streams, right? A lot of people are reaching this sense of security where they feel like they can confide in these types of people, because again, they find them relatable, they find them talented, they like what they have to offer, and they admire them for some sort of reason. So they basically confide in them. And people get attached to streamers in particular because they're looking for some type of innate human connection that's quick and responsive, And I think with Twitch, it kind of amplifies it, because Twitch is a live streaming service. Streamers can interact with their audiences directly via chat streams. And I think, let me think about this for a minute. Streamers can interact with their audiences directly via chat streams. And what is going on? Who's here? Hi. Okay. Streamers can interact with their audience directly via chat stream. So since Twitch is so interactive, and we're constantly interacting with people, streamers are constantly interacting with their audiences, people feel that innate human connection because they're constantly talking to the streamer. And it's also used as an escape from their real life too. A lot of people watch Twitch streams to escape from real life trauma, real life problems, A lot of young kids who watch streams, or young teens, especially if they're in an abusive home or an abusive family, they look to Twitch streams and they confide in the Twitch streamer because it's a sense of release for them, it's a sense of escape for them, it's a sense of joy. And it kind of helps bolster this type of parasocial relationships. Alright, now let's talk about parasocial relationships as it pertains to Mabinogi. So before we can talk about what intensifies parasocial relationships in Mabi, let's talk about what the Mabi community values, what we value as a community, right? And what we see as valuable, what we care about truly as a community. So when we think about what's valued in Mabinogi culture, we often think about fashion, we often think about gear, we think about popularity, we think about being rich and having gold, gameplay knowledge, and being good at the game. I think those are like the 6 major things: fashion, gear, popularity, riches, gameplay knowledge, and being strong. Those are top things that we value in the Mabi community, right? So people, if you're well known in these areas, whether it's fashion, whether you have good gear, whether you're popular for some reason, have riches or gameplay knowledge, people tend to gravitate towards you. Examples could be fashion bloggers, Tai Chi, who's really rich, who's really popular back in Alexina for having a lot of, basically inflating the market, right? People look to him, a lot of people, whether you love or hate Tai Chi, people like Tai Chi. Some people know him for being rich and being good at playing the market, Discord is known, Onfal is known for having a credible gameplay knowledge. People look to him for that. And so all these people known in these areas, right? Their audience has built some type of parasocial relationship with them without knowing them one-on-one. And this can be good, and this is good, this is bad. Pros and the cons, right? Pros of this: keeps people updated with the latest it informs people, they inform people, so it keeps people updated with the latest gacha, the latest gear, or the latest revamp that's going on in the game. Whether we just found out about the Arcana talents, we had the quality of life update with the raids, and people covering that constantly as news. It helps keeps people informed, right? It helps keep people informed. It teaches people how to navigate the game, and I respect people for that, because it teaches people how. I respect them for that because it teaches people how to navigate the game and how to navigate Mabinogi gameplay. The detriment of forming parasocial relationships with these people is aspiring to be like them, to a point where it becomes obsession, to the point where people literally drain wallets to get the latest gacha, to get the latest gear, right? To the point where the game becomes like a cash grab, because we're trying our best to follow their model and to follow their blueprint, if that makes sense. Like, I know people who spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on gear just to keep up with people who have it, and I think that's crazy to me, because we shouldn't be comparing ourselves to others, and if we're not on their level, it makes us feel less confident as people, and we kind of invalidate ourselves, and that's not healthy. I think the problem with parasocial relationships, especially in the Mabi community, is that we compare and contrast ourselves to other people, but we don't focus on just being us and doing us and growing and our own self-growth. We measure our own self-growth compared to what other people do, and I feel like everybody's different, and we should follow what benefits us and go at our own pace. We put such emphasis on getting the latest gacha, getting the best gear, knowing all about the game, where we forget to slow down, and that this is a game. We often project ourselves, since a lot of people use Mabinogi to escape, right? These trying to model others through parasocial relationships, doing this very action has consequences, and it only detriments our mental health. I feel like in the Mabi community, we should just be more supportive of each other. Like, don't roast noobs if they don't have the good gear. If you see someone with good gear and you don't have it, don't worry, they most likely bought it. Okay? And we need to stop comparing ourselves to others so much. I feel like people need to start doing them and realize that behind the computer screen, we are all just people at the end of the day, and we should all just continue to do us. Yeah, basically. Stop comparing your own self-worth to what other people do, and your own personal growth is your own personal growth. At the end of the day, the only person who can truly take care of you is you, not other people. Yes, some of these influencers can help guide you through the game and get you good at the game, but you have to know, what's the best scenario for you? How can you get good? What goals can you set for yourself? Big goal, you may not be able to set big goals right now, especially if you can't financially afford it. We maybe want to hit mini goals, like, hey, I want to have this, for example, I want to have X amount of skills ranked by this month, right? Instead of trying to do everything at once. Like, take small steps to hit the big step. That's what I'm trying to say. Basically, only you know your own growth. Only you can know what's good for you, not other people. And stop having parasocial. Stop putting people up to a pedestal where they don't deserve to be. Because at the end of the day, behind the computer screen, we are all normal people, and we all have a real life we have to go back to when we turn off the computer. Okay? And that's why I made Real Telly, and I made the Real Talk series, because I'm now making this True Honesty series, sort of in a way to help keep people grounded and, not project their insecurities onto the game. Because oftentimes too, people do these things, people spend a lot of money on Mobby, and people try to get their character strong and try to hit all these Mobby goals because they're insecure about their own lives. And we need to focus on not being so insecure to where we're to literally to the point we're bullying other people and being toxic to others because they don't have what certain other people have. We need to stop being elitist. We need to stop being classist, and we need to stop being a lot of other forms of oppression too. And I think, realizing not to compare yourselves and put certain people on a pedestal through parasocial relationships is a very important piece of the puzzle to moving forward and becoming a more positive community. Okay, that's all I had to say. If you like this True Honesty Talk, it'll be on my YouTube channel. If you like this live, don't forget to follow. I'd really appreciate it. And my YouTube is linked down in the panels below and in my bio. So if you want to follow me, you can follow me on here, and you can subscribe to me on YouTube. And that's all I had to say. You guys have a good rest of your evening, and I hope you guys enjoy the first episode of True Honesty. This is a podcast I'll be doing from time to time. So I have more topics to discuss with you guys. And yeah. Have a good night.